Hey folks, it's Eric Van Buskirk, and I am continuing the video that I previously did that was a follow-up on the webinar with SEMrush. If you did not see that, it's important that you look at it first, otherwise what you're seeing will be out of context. That video was Tactics and Techniques, Identify Hummingbird Semantic Relationships, and this is the continuation. So what I want to talk about now is how we're going to cover the gaps. If we have an existing website and we're looking at where there may be problems with, we're not really discussing everything like we need to in order to have thorough and comprehensive and holistic coverage. So we were looking at Xbox on the website Best Buy, and I was saying that what you want to do is filter. The way to do that is if you just type in filter here and you do a search when you're doing organic report, then you're going to get everything that contains the word Xbox. Let's say we were doing landscape gardening. That admittingly is going to be more of a challenge. So you might have to do all the words with landscaping, or you might do the words with gardening. But since it's a little more amorphous than this entity of Xbox, finding those gaps is going to be a little more challenging. But it's still very viable. So with Best Buy, this is a huge site as far as how much it ranks, and I'm pretty shocked at how much keywords they have with the word Xbox in them, actually over 12,000. And I might choose a similar number to what I had in the topic analysis that we did, somewhere over a little over north of 300. And then as I was showing the last video, I copy pasted all of the most important, it was a roughly 300 words that had at least 4 co-appearances, and I put them in here. By the way, I wrongly identified the alternative as being a plugin for Microsoft Word. Of course, that is a plugin for Microsoft Excel, one that I mentioned in the webinar. I don't have the name right in front of me right now. It's something like Fuzzy Logic, but it basically identifies 2 columns of phrases and the relationships and the matches between them using a fuzzy logic semantic way of doing so. So this is the app that I like using for the Tag Cloud, and it's actually tagcrowd.com. The other ones, some of the other ones that are in some ways people prefer it, and in some ways I actually prefer. I've noticed they have problems with JavaScript executing, so I wouldn't use them. I would definitely recommend this one for this case. Don't know that it's the best for everything you're doing, but for this, it's really just perfect. I changed the default number of words because I want to see 75 of the most popular words that are appearing. And so what are the words that are going to appear here? Well, it's not going to contain things like prepositions. It's not going to contain where, and these words that are like really, really common in everyday parlance that we don't really care about because that's not part of a critical part of a topic. So the words that are going to appear, and I'll just go ahead and show you here, are going to be what we see as being, sometimes we refer to them as head words, as opposed to long tail keywords, but they may not appear at the head of a phrase, but of course they're head in the sense that they're searched so often and they're such an important part of a keyword phrase or a topic, which, as I mentioned, I like to use that word as a non-SEO word. It's a word that defines something that we think of with a semantic definition. So games, that's pretty obvious that that's going to come up here. Some of these are also kind of obvious, but not entirely. Do we know that store is going to be more important than Twitter? Well, of course, Twitter and Xbox, that's not important. But compared to bundles, bundles is an interesting word. Would you have thought of that as coming up in 3 of the most important phrases that we found? So just this cloud alone is interesting to look at because these are our results. What we want to do is make another cloud. This is going to let us compare the 2 together. And we took those 400 and we're going to make a cloud in here. And in the end, we're going to have two sets. Some of the tag clouds let you download into an Excel or a Word document. And of course, that's going to give you all kinds of other comparisons here that are interesting between the two. But this does a great job in and of itself, because I can say, what are the ones that are gaps? And I showed in the webinar that there were specific gaps, one of which was video. So if I look back at our results from doing our gap analysis, I can look for the phrases that have a good amount of volume with respect to the fact that people are describing these as video games. So these are probably being described on that website a lot as just games, but it's not in the context of video games. So that's pretty obvious in and of itself. I mean, you can go off and just write more about how these relate to other gaming, other gaming that people are interested in, or you can look here and you can find something specific. This particular, key phrase of video, I looked and there's nothing all that like earth-breaking that you couldn't imagine on your own. I mean, here's a typical one that you might actually rank for if you were a gaming news site, even if you were a smaller one, because you can look at the search volume as well, and that's going to give you a good idea. So this is just Xbox One video games. It just doesn't look like that website was using the word video very much. They're just describing them as games. And also I would mention that you've got all these traditional SEO metrics here. So the competitive metric right here is actually really, really accurate. I would say it's actually more accurate than using Google Keyword Planner in many ways. The difference is that Keyword Planner looks at CPC, and sure, that can tell you the competition for paying for AdWords, but it's paying. It's paid. It's paid. It's a different world in some ways, although it's useful. But the competition score from SEMrush, what that does is it looks at the authority of the domain that's ranking, and it looks at the domains that are ranking for that keyword in like the top 20 spots, and says, oh, look at this, the top 10 spots are taken up by highly authoritative websites, and it does that based on their SEMrush score, to my understanding, but it's looking at their authority. So for example, if the top 5 spots are being taken by Wikipedia and Amazon and other domains like that, you've got an uphill battle to fight. And you can be looking at this when you're picking out these gaps that you're going to fill. And you can think of this in traditional terms for SEO. You can try and just sprinkle in some of the lower volume ones. You can try and cover a video term that has a lot of volume, and then write about it more extensively and include it in a sort of H2 tag, make it a subheading on an existing page, or write an entire new page that's just all about video versus something else to do with technology, games, or even games in the offline world, and you would be covering everything. That's all for the additional tactics and techniques that I wanted to show everyone. And if you want to reach out to me, probably the best way is by finding me on the contact sheet on my website. Very quick contact form here. Send me a message. Some of you may have my email from the webinar. That's fine too. And also on social media, of course. So I'm mostly active on LinkedIn, Twitter, and poor Google Plus. It's really not being used very much. I use it a little, so not the best place to find me, but Twitter certainly is. Reach out to me on Twitter if you like. And on Twitter, I am at Eric Van Buskirk. That's just the spelling of my full name as one word. There it is right there. And thanks very much for taking a look at the videos, as well as I would guess most of you came here because you saw the webinar in SEMrush. If you didn't, there's probably going to be, or actually for sure, there's going to be a slide share uploaded of that. There'll be a video uploaded. And again, I hope that this all is helpful to you. Have a great day.